Hey there, we're at Santa Monica Farmers Market on Wednesdays. It's one of the best farmers markets in the country. And here I am with Chef Travis Swikard. He's going to be opening a restaurant coming soon, very, very soon in San Diego. It's one of the most anticipated restaurants called Callie. And pretty much we're going to come here, buy all the produce and make a meal.
Yeah, so we're going to look for some summer ingredients today. Looking for some peppers, tomatoes, everything that's kind of in season right now. Maybe some eggplant, some onions. We'll make a nice little sofrito base and make a really kind of awesome North African, Middle Eastern dish called shakshuka that they eat. It's very much like a street food.
All right, so he's gonna make some shakshuka. Just got back from the Santa Monica Farmers Market, and then 2.5 hours later we're here all set up in our outdoor kitchen in Cardiff. And here we have again Chef Travis. Travis, tell us what you're making.
So today we're making shakshuka. It's kind of something that as we were walking through the market today, it was just like, here we have all of these summery ingredients that are going to go great together. Similar to making a ratatouille in French cuisine, where you're cooking from the garden. All these things are kind of coming together at the same time. My cuisine that I do at Callie is Mediterranean, which also encompasses ratatouille, which is kind of like a stewed eggplant, tomato, peppers. It's very cool for me because it is a dish that kind of symbolizes Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, and cuisine from Jerusalem, which is kind of a melting pot of different cuisines from all over North Africa and from the Middle East. And that's kind of what shakshuka means, right?
Yeah, and now you're bringing shakshuka here in Southern California.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that more often than not, a lot of times people are making shakshuka that are, using canned tomatoes or using something that's, not fresh. And the best thing about this is buy some nice peppers, some onions,
what's
some
in
tomatoes.
Season?
Yeah, exactly.
People make shakshuka in summer because of the beautiful tomatoes that we get, the beautiful peppers that we get. I think some of the things that we're missing in real shakshuka is the spices. And what's
exactly.
in season.
And traditionally, the shakshuka is something that it's just onions, peppers, some spice, and then tomato, and kind of stewed down to order, cooked really fast to order. In Israeli markets, or in Jerusalem, there's a farmer's market where there's a guy named Dr. Shakshuka there, and he makes it's basically like a street food there. And today we're going to do it with, we're going to start off by something that's not traditional that goes in there, but we had these amazing kind of Chinese eggplant, this slender eggplant, dark skin, purple skin, super nice and dense. And these are great when they're nice and young like this, because before they start to get really fat, there's less seeds inside, so it's a little bit less bitter. But I want to add some, a lot of times with vegetarian cuisine, I like to add a lot of umami flavors to it without putting meat inside of it. So to do that, we're going to start off by turning this guy on. Of course, if you're at home and you have a nice charcoal grill or something like that, it's always nice to use that as well. We just put these guys on here, and we're going to let these, first I just poke some little holes inside the eggplant.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that when the eggplant's cooking, it's not going to explode. And, because it has a lot of moisture inside, and if it gets trapped inside the skin, it's going to puff up, and then high heat, it's going to try the skin, but also it's going to start to cook on the inside. And as it starts to cook on the inside, it's going to become more and more smoky on the inside, and it's going to add that nice umami flavor.
I can already smell the smoke. It's nice.
And then we were there. We got some fresh garlic. Everything we had here today, we got all from one market, and we just brought some spices from home. Everything we got here, the amazing eggs from Mike and Sons.
Mike and Sons, yeah.
And then we had some incredible peppers from one guy too. We had some really nice ripe, and kind of 3 stages of poblano pepper, a sweet kind of bell pepper, and then we have. This one was this is a fresh paprika pepper, which is going to be a little more sweet. This one was halaro, I think.
Halaro.
Halaro pepper, which is in the jalapeno family, a little bit more sweet and floral,
Yeah,
less spicy, more fruity. And then for the base, for the onions, I always like to take, for the base of it, I always take like onions and garlic and kind of make like a sofrito, like stew that part out.
Yeah.
And then, but this particular onion is called a tropea onion, which is like a sweeter red onion from Tropea in Italy. And so a lot of people are growing it here because we have that similar Mediterranean climate here in Southern California. So this is a great onion that you can eat. It's nice and sweet, and you can eat it raw. You can braise it down like a regular purple onion. You can cook it like a shallot. It's great to like.
It looks like a giant shallot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and in England we call these banana shallots.
Yeah.
But they're really, really nice and sweet, and it's going to add a great base of flavor. So to start this dish, I'm just going to start to chop these things up, and then we're going to put, and then I'm just going to get like a little bit of like smoke, and I'm going to use a lot of these. Traditionally like, you like char this stuff and like take the skin off. I'm going to just kind of leave most of the skin on and just get a little bit of char on the outside. Just keep an eye on those guys. I don't want them burnt. I just want to add like again like a little bit of smokiness, and then afterwards we're gonna chop them up. If you're gonna do like a stewed tomatoes type of dish, you don't need to use a beautiful heirloom tomato. This is a beefsteak tomato, a number 2 beefsteak tomato that they know is gonna be ripe. Maybe got a little bit smashed, a little bit bruised in some way, but it doesn't mean it's trash. It's super ripe and
What's
amazing.
number 2 mean?
Most of the time it just means that they're overripe, so you wouldn't want to like use it as a slicing tomato because it might like fall apart. It's so juicy. So we're gonna use those guys,
and they're cheaper.
and then less expensive, exactly. And then not traditional again for shakshuka, but also sometimes you're if you're having like one meal for your breakfast and lunch, or you're like hungry or whatever, I like to add like some like nice clean carbs, and like and especially like when you're buying a great potato from Wiser Farms, super flavorful, super nutritious, and like it's a great like not traditionally where people think of as a potato being like a bad carb. Like these are like full of nutrients, and you see we have multiple different colored potatoes, and each one has its own kind of different levels of nutrients. As you can you're the person that's going to talk about that.
Not all carbs are bad for you. It's just carbs from bad sources, like
or refined
foods. But from natural carbohydrates like that, especially growing from a farm like Wiser, is going to be a beautiful, beautiful add.
Yeah, so I'm just going to prep these onions real quick, and like maybe if I was in the my kitchen at the restaurant, maybe I might make these guys like super perfect, but like at home, if I'm going to make this dish, I'm just going to kind of roughly chop these guys on a wobbly cutting board. That smells so good.
It's smelling really great.
So I'm just going to use those onions right there.
Look at his non-perfect onions.
And then
they're looking pretty perfect here, Travis.
And then I'm going to just again like just slice some garlic. And again, I'm not going to like finely brunoise this garlic. I'm just going to like, that wasn't my finger.
That's the table leg.
Wobbling around. We're going to cook the potatoes and onions down. We have this amazing olive oil that we got from another local producer from California.
This is amazing to know that we got all this at the Santa Monica Farmers Market, besides the spices, the dried spices, but this is amazing.
And honestly, like, any market, any farmer's market, that you go to right now, you might not be able to find like tropea onions, but you'll be able to find onions. You'll be able to find like most spicy and sweet peppers. You'll be able to find cilantro. Should be able to find potatoes. Definitely tomatoes are growing everywhere right now. Eggplants popping off right now.
Yeah.
Beautiful organic eggs you'll find everywhere. So it's not like we're like, hey, we went to Santa Monica Farmers Market and this is like you can only find this stuff there. Like maybe 25 varieties of peppers you're not gonna be able to find there, but like besides that, you're gonna be able to find like most of the stuff at like
a grocery store.
Exactly.
So one of the things like you also had worked in your history was for Daniel Boulud, right? In New York.
Yeah.
Explain a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So Danielle, I worked with Danielle. So I moved to New York City. I was coming from working in London for a while, and just finished went to work in London, and I came back and finished my bachelor's degree in culinary arts. And then my mentor, Gavin Kaysen, became the chef at Cafe Boulud. He called me up. He's like, "Hey, can you come down to New York and and help me like build my team here?" And for me, it was like, a dream, kind of a dream come true, but it's also super intimidating because, since I knew I wanted to be a chef since I was like 4 years old. And like my dad bought me like chef pants and like Daniel Boulud cookbook when I was like 12, and like
Wow.
and then so when I was walking into the first Daniel kitchen at Cafe Boulud, I remember like walking down the streets of Manhattan and thinking like I was gonna like walk into this like amazing palace. There's just gonna be like ah! and I ended up just walking into this like neighborhood restaurant that was Cafe Boulud, and it just became like, it was such an amazing thing for me. Like, you build up this intimidation because you're this kid from San Diego that like, grew up in East County, San Diego, humble beginnings, humble family, like, a hardworking, family. My dad was a business owner, and my mom stayed home and took care of 5 boys, and like, have amazing parents that were just always about like, you can do whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
So it allowed me to be that dreamer. And then I, get to New York and realize that like, hey, this has been my dream the whole life, and not only am I achieving this dream of like working in New York, but like within 4 years later, I was a chef for Daniel Boulud in New York City, opening a new restaurant for him, and then like 3 years after that, I was a culinary director running a huge empire for Daniel, and
So you're pretty much Danielle's right-hand man for a long time, right?
I mean, a couple years I was running like 3 of his properties there. He had 7 properties at a time, and from the culinary side, I was able to he put the trust in me to kind of watch over that, and also still be the chef at one of the restaurants, and also watch over the other properties as well at the same time. And the thing for me was like, it wasn't just like learning how to become a great cook or learning about great cuisine. It was like, for me, it was so much more. It was learning about his translation, his language of hospitality, and like how he would breathe hospitality, and like it would be part of his like his heart and soul, and something that ran through his blood is just the act of taking care of people, and like truly wholeheartedly caring about your guests, your people, your employees. That goes a long way of being a leader, being a mentor, being able to like really invest in people. And that's something that I I was able to really take advantage of, and like even I didn't even realize it as much when I was there until I was able to step away. And now I still have him as a resource where I can like reach out and speak with him. He entrusted me to make mistakes, and learn my own cuisine and learn my way, but also, he also saw that like I was extremely passionate about ingredients, and we'd sit there and talk about new menus and talk about the food that I wanted to do at the restaurants, and he would like completely just like let me go, and like I would talk about like each season I come up with like 15, 20 new dishes, and I just I bring to him like a list of the ingredients that I wanted to use, and I have a list of like 4 different options of dishes that I wanted to do for each of the 15, 20 dishes, so I'd have like 80 dishes we'd sit down and talk about, and he'd just be like, yeah, or like that's amazing, or hey, maybe you want to add something like this or that or something like that, or just, and he would think about like the taste and the texture, and like you could see him like tasting the dish. You see him like tasting the dish in his mouth, like as I was like talking about it. But I like knew all like the nuances that I was looking for, and like the flavor and the texture and the aroma from the dish, and like which is amazing why I built my kitchen at Callie. Why I built an open kitchen was because like we're cooking Mediterranean food. We have all these amazing spices, and like it's important that when I bring this dish out to your table, I put it down in front of you, and you smell the aroma of the cumin or the harissa that's freshly toasted chilies that we get here in Southern California, that we make this harissa from. So that's why I built this open kitchen at Callie, is just kind of like accentuate that feeling that that I had of making Mediterranean food in New York. And
so what is your concept now at Callie, and what wanted you to like bring that over here?
So in New York, I was executive chef at a restaurant called Boulud Sud, and it was something that Danielle and I had developed, and the original chef that was there, Aaron Chambers, I was his number 2 in the beginning, and then I took over, and it was something that we were kind of developing when I was there, and the more I studied about, because we all have very strong French backgrounds, we studied Danielle obviously, and then we studied under Danielle, and I studied in London as well, French cuisine. So it's like, how do we take this like fundamentals of French cuisine, and then take the culture cuisine that we're still learning about, the Mediterranean cuisine, all encompassing Mediterranean cuisine, from Turkey, Syria, all the way around the Mediterranean, even spaces that aren't necessarily touching the Mediterranean Sea, but still considered Mediterranean cuisine, and the ties of the culture between Turkey, Syria, even like, the ties of the culture of Ottoman cuisine in India going into Turkey, and the Middle Eastern countries, Lebanon and Israel and North Africa, take the politics away, and in Spain and south of France and Italy and Greece, Sicilian. So it was like, that was like so intriguing for me, because I love, one, ingredient focused seasonal cuisine, but also love like brightly flavored, clean food that like you can taste the ingredients. But I love like acid and spice and salt. Like, I grew up in Southern California. I loved eating like, Mexican burritos and putting hot sauce on every bite, and like getting that little spice and squeeze a lime on it, eating a grilled octopus burrito, like lime and hot sauce. And it's like, that's kind of like the cuisine that I like equate it to. Is like, you want that acid, you want that freshness, you want that, beautiful, clean kind of ingredient. You want the ingredient to be like accentuated by that its partners in the dish, but like, you don't want it to be overpowered. So, in New York, it was very much like French Mediterranean, and it was a little bit more fine dining, a little bit more high end, and here I wanted to just make it more San Diego style, which is like, make it kind of accessible to everybody, and make it very approachable, and make it, still using the amazing ingredients, but very much more vegetable focused here, because we have just, I found myself in New York buying incredible produce 3 months a year from New York, 9 months a year from California, and it was like, well, let me just go back to California and just like and cook it there, like 12 months a year I'll have amazing product in my backyard. Callie is more focused on featuring each ingredient as its own thing, and making things more simple and approachable, in a fun kind of atmosphere, where it's like kind of the dining room's fun and jovial, loud music, and just like more something that's an expression of me rather than an expression of Danielle.
This is honestly, like, when you're talking about like all the melting pots, well, one, we're making shakshuka, which is hilarious because it means an Arabic mixture, and then also the fact that like you're coming back to California while in New York you were using California produce 9 months out of the year, and you're back here. And honestly, it's really funny to think about, because San Diego is really the most perfect spot for having the most fresh produce. Some of the facts that some people don't know is that we have the most organic farms per capita in the county, in the entire country. And then also we're coastal, so we have access to such amazing great seafood. So this is pretty much like you're using the elements here perfectly in San Diego. We've been like pretty much like anticipating your opening for like so long, because it really is like what San Diego's been like crying for.
And it's really, I think there's like 7 or 8 Mediterranean climates around the world, and San Diego is one of them. It's pretty cool to kind of come back here, and like growing up here as a little kid, and like not really realizing like what I had, just knowing that we had great surf, and I surfed every day, and then I was like,
I also have access to amazing farms, amazing produce.
And I was exposed to that like pretty young, and that was like, pretty young in my career, where like right before I left, I was like, 20 years old, and I was like starting to realize like, okay, this is where like my love for food becomes the passion for ingredients, where I start to like, work in restaurants where actually the chef goes to the farmer's market and meets the farmers, and like, talks about like why the tomato is better here or there, or why like he stops watering his tomato plants like 3 days before. I think that guy's done and ready to go.
Okay. Everything off the grill?
Yeah. I was just gonna leave it on, and we'll throw this pot on there.
Put here?
Yeah.
Might be turned. That's good.
Beautiful.
It looks so good. You guys, lots of those like yum.
Now we're gonna just start with kind of our sofrito base, which is gonna be like, we're gonna start with onions and garlic, add the raw peppers to it, and then we'll add the charred peppers and kind of get that sofrito base.
What is sofrito for people?
So sofrito is a Spanish word, but there's a word for it in every cuisine. It's kind of like the base of flavor, and it's like the melting of ingredients together to make a base flavor of, normally it's a allium, of the allium family of onion and garlic, where you have this like, which gives a base flavor of kind of like soul food. You know, it adds like the love to the base of anything. Can be like bright and fresh from fresh tomatoes, but you have that core base, the foundation of the food is made from that kind of melting of onion and garlic or some kind of allium. So I'm just gonna add some of this beautiful manzanilla olive oil that we got, this like local California olive oil that we got at the farmer's market. Quite a bit of olive oil, but I like to put quite a bit of fat in the base of a sofrito, just so it kind of can like all melt together. So I'm gonna add that guy to that. We're not gonna add any salt yet to this because I want them to sweat together and not. If I add the salt now to the onions and the garlic, they're gonna let go of their juices, and then the juices are gonna reduce down, and then before they're cooked all the way through, they're gonna be basically dry on the outside and start to caramelize. Which you don't want them to caramelize yet. You want them to just kind of like melt. So we're just gonna add those guys like that. I'm gonna let you go ahead and stir that as I kind of. It's gonna take a couple minutes to do. So I have raw peppers there, which are gonna go next. So actually, I can just throw those peppers in now, because if you're gonna be a fancy chef, you peel the peppers a little bit to get the skin off. Otherwise, it's just important that when you're cooking with peppers with the skin on, is that they get the skin actually gets like charred a little bit on the base of the pan. So you want to kind of like make sure that the skin melts a little bit, so that it will kind of braise down.
So let's talk about like how you got the name Callie.
Yeah.
The name of your restaurant. Basically,
Callie came from. After I left Danielle, I was fortunate that my partners came and picked me up. I met them down in Spain, and we went to Salvador Dali's house, which has always kind of been one of my favorite artists, and like just someone that's like, you know, a lot of chefs are wild and crazy, and like, you know, a lot of our inspiration comes from just like, you know, I don't know, nightmares or something. I don't know.
Very surrealistic.
Yeah.
And then where is Salvador Dali's house?
So it's in Caracas in Spain, which is like on the Costa Brava of Spain.
Okay.
And so I'm a Pisces, so I got, you know, we got there. I was with my partner Deborah Scott. We got to the house and we walked in. We like parked up on this hill, and this house down below, you can see like these like symbolic eggs, like big white eggs in this house, and I just like running down this hill and like rip up all my clothes and jump in the ocean. And like at the time we were there, like we were kind of just getting inspiration for this Mediterranean restaurant, and I was like going through my head of like, you know, all these names I wanted, and like I started my trip in Bologna, and I had this idea in my head of like just wanting to like create a name that meant something like is from San Diego or is from California, that kind of told the story of me, that was like, you know. So the original name that I had was like ESDECA, which is like, but I was just spelling it like SDCA, like San Diego, California, but it meant like is from California. And then I was like, you know, people aren't gonna get it, and I think it's a Spanish restaurant or something like that. So, yeah. But then I went there, jumped in the Mediterranean Sea, started swimming backwards, like Deb's standing there, like
naked,
yeah,
right?
Deb's trying to like block me like with a towel, and I'm like swimming out there, and I look back over Salvador's house, and there's like a hotel behind his house. It's called Calais, and so I was like, wow, that's a beautiful name. Like, where does that name come from? And it's like stuck in my head the whole trip, and like I started researching Calais, and it came from this Greek word Kallios, which means the most beautiful in Greek.
Aww.
And I was like, and I knew I wanted something that like connected like California to the Mediterranean, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, and then I remember one of my best friends, his name's Jacob. He has amazing restaurants there in New York City. He's a Greek guy, and he's from Greece, and so is his wife, and both their moms' names were Callie, spelled with a K. It's Kalie or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, what if I took the word like Callie, like going back to Cali, strictly for the weather, and
you are going back to Cali.
Exactly, and then also kind of took this Calais word and put it together, so it was like California Mediterranean coming together, but it also meant like the most beautiful in Greek. It also is like a female name, of like a feminine name, which I really like. I like the kind of like hard C kind of sound to it, and like, you know, some people might think it's like just means California. Some people might care about the story. At the end of the day, you know, who I am and coming, you know, traveling all over the world, cooking all over the world and coming back, I've always been a Cali boy. And it's kind of like, you know, it's fun, it's simple, it means something, but it doesn't need to mean anything.
So
you know,
this restaurant pretty much is kind of like your poetic form
tells
of
the story
like your entire life journey.
Exactly.
And inspiration. This is,
yeah.
it's so much passion involved, so we're super looking forward for the opening.
So I like to toast the spices when I'm doing this, and these are just like whole coriander seeds, which is fine because they're kind of braised as they go. We didn't have a mortar and pestle today, but it's fine. It's nice like green coriander. Here you can use just regular crushed coriander, and because I'm using the whole guys of those, I'll just use whole cumin as well. I like to use cumin with tomatoes. Again, it's like cumin's like an ingredient, a spice that kind of adds a little smoky flavor to something. Especially for vegetarian cuisine, I like to use it because it's like, it adds a really nice kind of umami, smoky flavor to something.
It smells so good.
Yeah. And then in that sofrito base, it's going to take a little bit of time to cook the potatoes. So I'm going to add some.
What made you want to cook the potatoes? Add the potatoes in the shakshuka?
It was just because like I wanted to have like something that was like good for, you know, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and something that was like, you know, added a little bit of like carbohydrate that made a little bit, you know, of a richer dish, but also it just like, you know, it's like ratatouille. Like, you know, you buy great ingredients. Just because something's traditional doesn't mean that it can't go together. Look at that beautiful.
So
beautiful.
I think you were going for it because the potatoes were so beautiful.
Yeah, they're so beautiful. So exactly, it's like
I brought home 40 pounds.
Yeah, you get inspired by like just going to the market and
exactly.
and seeing what's there, and then like from there you go, okay, well I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna cook this way, and like, you know, not maybe traditionally I wouldn't put potato inside of it, but I mean, why not?
Look
like,
at how beautiful
we're not in Israel. We're in California. We're in San Diego. We're cooking, and again, it's ingredient focused cuisine. It's not about necessarily like it has to be traditional, like if we're in Japan or if we're in France, you know, so focused on tradition. Here it's like making great food with great ingredients.
Yeah, and what's great about this is that shakshuka has evolved in so many times, you know, so many cultures, and it has, you know, been borrowed, and they don't really know where the origin comes from. Like most people may think it's Moroccan, but yours means Israeli, and it's, you know, it's just so many borrowed cultures, which is so great because California is a melting pot.
Yeah.
And we're continuously borrowing from other cultures and kind of creating our own style with what we have traditionally here.
And you know, I think it's important to understand the core, the culture, where it comes from, how it was made traditionally. You know, otherwise you kind of very quickly find yourself, this is kind of a spicy pepper that I'm adding in there. But then you can if you don't understand the culture, where it comes from, why it's done, and how and why it was done traditionally, then you very quickly find yourself doing what is more rather than doing fusion, which I kind of hate that word, because most fusion cuisine where you're drawing from different cultures is more like confusion. It kind of becomes confusion when you're when you're like don't know what you're doing. You're just because you don't know what you're doing, you're like, I know a little bit about this and a little bit about this, and you're putting it together and you're calling it something that it's really not. You know, like here it's like, you know, the focus of it is kind of melting the flavors together. So I'm gonna add all these.
What are you adding right here?
I'm just gonna add some of those jalapeno peppers.
Those are delicious, by the way. Those are like a
super flavorful. I'm gonna add these.
Fragrant.
Then I just have like the charred poblanos that I kind of like just took off some of the skin, but again I want some of that smokiness.
This is like one of the most beautiful, vibrant, colorful dishes.
It looks just like summer, you know, like it's exactly what summer should be.
It is summer.
So and then you can see, like, open up this eggplant, you have this like beautiful silky kind of flesh that's inside. And it's like super smoky, and that's gonna like add kind of like
so good.
It's gonna add kind of like a silky, rich, kind of meaty kind of flavor to the dish. Again, for vegetarian cuisine, you know, you can easily skip the eggs on this guy and make it vegan if you wanted to. You don't have to add the you don't have to. I mean, look at that. It's like perfect eggplant.
Beautiful.
I'm just gonna throw it in there. You can kind of smash it up, and then yeah, you could just add like more eggplant and make it more meaty, and add a tomato, braise it down, and then skip the eggs if you want to, skip the cheese if you want to, and make it vegan if you want. There's a lot of amazing like nutrients in there, it's gonna last you for a while. Again, I'm just gonna like peel this guy off, but like it doesn't have to be all gone, because like all you think about, like all this charred skin is gonna disperse throughout the whole thing, so it's gonna give it like a little bit of smokiness all the way through. You see that like amazing kind of meaty texture there. And then I'm just gonna wipe my hands.
I think probably charred eggplant might be like one of the most beautiful, like almost like what chard is meant for.
Yeah, exactly. And because these potatoes are what we call like new potatoes.
What kind?
Well, new potatoes are like when they're freshly picked out of the ground, so the skin's a little bit more delicate.
Yeah.
And also they're not like cellared potatoes. So cellared potato is like what you take and you put in your cellar in a dark place.
Yeah.
You would hold throughout the winter, and that would be something that might be a little bit more firm. It depends. They might have a little bit more water content, but these guys are gonna cook pretty much like in like 3 to 4 minutes. So we're gonna let those guys cook a little bit longer, the potatoes, until you start to feel them kind of start to break up. And as you're doing that, we're gonna start to cut up these tomatoes.
Smells so good.
That's what I'm talking about.
Ooh, number
Beautiful,
two.
like overripe tomato. And like you could take these and like Italians might like squeeze out the seeds or like squeeze out the insides, but honestly, I mean, I love all that flavor. I love the seeds. I think that the bitterness of the seeds really like balances things out, and I'm all about balance,
We got the seeds in the eggplant, the seeds in the capsicums.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you see, like all these things are kind of cooking down right now, and and this is like our base sofrito. You have all this amazing flavors kind of melting together, and then now we're gonna add the kind of tomato and let this tomato kind of quickly stew. You can let it stew for a long time, or just let it like quickly stew down. So these guys are just gonna break down. The juice is gonna kind of come out, and I'll kind of give them a little squeeze, give them a little head start. Kind of smash them down with the. And we can just kind of turn down the heat just a touch. I'm also gonna. Oh, that's gonna go in there. We're gonna add another little pinch of salt to that, because you're gonna add all that acid. We're gonna finish this guy with some cilantro. So in the base of it, the most flavorful part of the cilantro is really the stems, and so I'm gonna just chop up the stems and throw it in there and kind of have it like braised with our sofrito base.
So you use the stems of the cilantro?
Oh, absolutely. I use these like over the leaves actually.
Yeah. So a lot of people throw that away.
No, it's like the most flavorful part. No, watch. When I cut that with a sharp knife, like that's where you like smell coriander.
Oh, it smells so good.
The leaves are really nice as well, but a lot of that kind of coriander flavor comes from these stems, and the stems can kind of get raised out, or you can like use them fresh. Sprinkle them over a burrito, sprinkle it on top if you wanted to, but don't throw them away. Always great, like if you're gonna make like a salsa at home or whatever,
Yeah, beautifully, perfectly chopped cilantro.
I don't know what I'm doing. Still learning.
First time.
Still learning. So it's again like because everything is melting together now, you have like the ripe tomato already has like an amazing umami flavor, and so like this right here is an incredible vegan dish.
Now, why is a ripe tomato full of umami flavor? Like, it's only when it's a real ripe tomato?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's either a really ripe tomato or a cooked tomato that's gonna give it a more of a umami flavor. Like, you can make umami flavor with a really ripe tomato, and take the juice and like make tomato water from it, and make it taste like it's gonna add that umami flavor to it, because it's like matured kind of flavor, which is like the kind of base of what umami means, is like that kind of mature meaty flavor. The umami is going to be accentuated by cooking the tomato. So now we can stew this guy a little bit longer. I like the fresher tomato, the taste of the tomato.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is, this is the end of the dish. This is where it's at. So what we do is we're gonna cook we're gonna do these. We're gonna crack some eggs the Nonna style, Italian Nonna when you're making Nonna style. So when you're making Italian grandmas when they're making pasta, you just hit 2 eggs together, and always one's gonna crack. Always only one's gonna crack. And what I do, I'm gonna open the egg. I'm gonna drop it inside, make a little hole, and then.
What? Look at this technique. Nonna.
And then what I like to do is like take the egg, kind of like go like this, go around.
Why is that?
And kind of like drops the egg down, and so it has a little more contact with the bottom of the pan as well. And you're just gonna turn it down to like a medium heat. Beautiful, nutrient-rich egg yolk there.
It's beautiful. Farmers market eggs. People always ask, where can you get the best eggs? I'm like, go visit your local farmers market.
Yeah, I mean,
get to know your ranchers.
San Diego, we have a few awesome farmers that produce some amazing eggs. I like Three Sons there out of Ramona. I like them because they, it's kind of, if you're a farmer and you're growing, if you have good soil and you have a lot of kind of great food growing around and rich soil, and you'll naturally have kind of a more of a ability to have natural weeds going around, so that the chickens can go around and peck and scratch and eat wild mustard flowers and kind of peck and scratch and move the soil around and get some really good nutrients from the soil. So oftentimes that'll make the egg yolk more flavorful, more nutrient, have a higher fat content, and also be more colorful as well. But I have some fresh cilantro. I got some feta cheese from the farmer's market today. This is another kind of California feta cheese from Drake Farms. Beautiful kind of local farmstead style feta cheese that's made from goat's milk. So it's going to have a little bit more of a tangy flavor to it, which is the acidity with the tomato. Again, will be really nice. So I'm just going to
feta from goat.
Yeah, I'm going to take that. They say, what do they say? More feta, more better? Oh yeah, something like that. So this is not a super traditional style feta from goat cheese, but I like goat cheese because it's a little bit more tangy. So I like it to be a little bit warmed up. So I'm going to take that and put a little bit of feta over the top. So that guy's done. And then so the egg whites are starting to cook up a little bit. Just kind of let it, at that point, you're just going to let it bring it to the table at this point. And by the time it comes to the table, it's going to be nice and cooked in the egg.
Ooh, look at that egg yolk.
It's perfect.
It is. It almost looks cured.
Yeah.
Right? Looks like hot. So.
Tastes like summer.
So good. I don't even know what to say.
Tastes like summer, no?
It is summer.
The egg yolk is perfect.
We want to thank Chef Travis Swikard from Callie. We can't wait for your restaurant opening. And you're gonna come back and make more recipes with us.
Yeah, why not?
This is amazing.
Cook it up.
So much fun. All right.
That's what I love.
Cheers.